Hello and welcome to another episode of the Monday Night Wars. It is April 15th, 1996, and we are live with WCW Nitro coming to us from the Charleston Civic Center in Charleston, West Virginia. I'm Scott. With me, as always, is Joseph, the Body Donna Rojas. Joseph, how are you?
I'm good, man. It's a week later in podcast time, but it's really the same day as the last one, so I still sound horrible. I feel great. I feel fantastic. I just sound awful.
You know, it's a new week, but it feels like it's only been like 15 minutes. That's how much we enjoy this. Just time flies when you're having fun. Anyways, speaking of fun, Joseph, you remember last week when Hulk Hogan and the Booty Man told us that they had a secret up their sleeve? They had a secret weapon that was going to end the alliance to defeat the Hulkamania Hulkster person committee forever.
And by last week, you mean technically 2 weeks ago because there was no WCW last week.
That's true. I
Yes.
forgot that they were premium. So, Joseph, do you remember 2 weeks ago when they did that?
I do remember that, Scott.
Yeah. Do you want to know what their secret weapon is, Joseph?
What's their secret weapon, Scott?
It's putting Hulk Hogan in a handicap match against Arn Anderson and Kevin Sullivan.
Fucking brilliant.
Yeah, that's it. That's the secret weapon. But I will tell you, because it's a Hogan match, he wins.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you surprised?
You know, I actually was surprised. I kept telling myself, there's no way they're gonna do this. I kept being like, there's no way. There's no possible way what I think is gonna happen is gonna happen. And I just kept lying to myself throughout it. And then of course it did happen.
He hulks up, he no sells, he puts Arn and Kevin in figure fours because what an insult that is. He wins.
The worst looking figure fours.
Oh, they're so bad. It gets worse. Like the Arn one is like passable, and the Kevin Sullivan one's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can do a better figure four than that. You know, out in the schoolyard, we used to put our buddies in figure fours. So, I mean, I feel like I could do it and do it better than Hogan. Anyways, Hogan wins his handicap match in 4 minutes and 12 seconds. But the absurdity doesn't end there, Joseph, because good guy Hogan then acts like he's going to beat up on the ladies of Space Mountain. We got Miss Elizabeth and the woman there, and he acts like he's going to beat them up, but he's a good guy. I don't understand. I haven't understood the Hogan gimmick for months now. He ends up deciding he's going to whoop on Jimmy Hart. The Giant comes in. The Giant, who I thought was a good guy now and wasn't with Jimmy Hart. He's back with Jimmy Hart. Comes out, saves Jimmy Hart, choke slams Hulk Hogan, but the Hulkster no sells it. What is going on here?
I gave this a D minus.
That's
more
than I'm going to give it.
I really debated giving it an F, but I was like, well, there's a lot of moving pieces. I decided I wasn't going to be that mean. So I gave it a D minus. It's not good. It's really quite bad. How do you book this? How do you look at this thing and go, yes, this is a good idea to have him win a handicap match with no outside interference? And if people came in and found a way to support him, I totally I'm okay with that. But this essentially is Hogan beats everybody. It's absurd. It doesn't work. It can't work. And they really just decided, let's go for it. And I don't really understand why. It made no sense to me. Hogan cuts a whatever promo at the end of it. Actually, one thing that did make me laugh was when he's swinging at everybody, and then Mean Gene comes in and he like picks up Mean Gene because he's gonna body slam him too, and then he realizes, oh, it's Mean Gene. It's not another attacker. That actually made me laugh. I'll give Hogan credit for that. We shit on Hogan a lot. Hogan is a great part of wrestling history. Unfortunately, this is just the worst time for him. It just isn't working. And God, NWO cannot come soon enough.
Yeah, you know, and this is talk about what an important role Hulk Hogan has played in the history of wrestling. No joke. I know I make the Mount Rushmore joke a lot, but I would probably put Hulk Hogan, despite how much I've shit on him during this podcast, I would probably put him on my Mount Rushmore because of how important he was to the industry and, still is. But this isn't good. And I will tell you, you said, how could they book it this way? From what I read from my research, they didn't book it this way. Hulk Hogan said, that don't work for me, brother. And then it became this. Because he goes away. After this, he goes away. And I think he goes away until Bash at the Beach. I think he's off doing a movie or something. He's off TV for quite a while. And this is like the end. And the original idea, because they knew he was going away, was that Arn and Kevin Sullivan were gonna put him in the hospital. He was gonna get rolled out on a stretcher, very dramatic, and then he was gonna make his triumphant return in a couple of weeks, and defeat everybody. Which we've seen before, which has been done before, so that's nothing new, but it makes more sense than what we see. He defeats them in this handicap match that was apparently his idea the whole time. This was his ingenious plan to handicap himself against the committee of the alliance of the organization to defeat the Hulkster and all his friends. And then he disappears. I want to move on. I'm just going to move on.
That's fine, Scott. Let's move on.
I think something in my brain just snapped, and I just feel like we got to move on. I was like, what are they doing? Anyways, after that, we've got a Falls Count Anywhere street fight between the Nasty Boys and Public Enemy. Two tag teams that were not super hot on, but I didn't hate this. I kind of like these hardcore matches these two groups do. It is long. It's 9 minutes 17 seconds. It's almost 10 minutes. But the Nasty Boys win. They defeat Public Enemy. There's some story here. Remember that they all look, these teams look alike to me. I have trouble remembering who was who, but I remember, I think it was did the Nasty Boys spoil a match for Public Enemy by dressing up like them and getting pinned? Was that the direction that went in?
Yeah, Johnny Grunge dressed as Brian Knobbs, complete with haircut and everything, and rolled Brian Knobbs out of the ring, ran into the ring, took a pinfall immediately, so that way it appeared that the Nasty Boys lost the match and totally screwed them out of it. It was a really clever idea.
Okay, so I flipped it. So it was Public Enemy that spoiled the match for the Nasty Boys. I
Correct.
flipped it there, but yeah. So there is a story here. There is a reason for having this match. There's bad blood. I didn't hate it, even if we don't really like these tag teams. What'd you think?
We completely disagree here. I did not like this.
You hated it. 2 for 2 tonight, huh?
Well, so here's my problem. It's not necessarily that I hated it. It's that it's just booked horribly, in my opinion. What you have here is a hardcore tag team match, right? Which is fine. If this is the blow off at the pay-per-view, I'm okay with that. Nasty Boys, you had this really clever idea with how the Nasty Boys got screwed by Public Enemy. In my opinion, the next few weeks should be these two tag teams finding ways to screw each other out of wins, essentially, right? With them getting more and more heated at each other as it's going on. And finally it ends in them brawling the week before the pay-per-view. And whomever is the big wig at WCW, who at this point there's no like commissioner or anything like that they have on screen, but someone, the WCW office has decided they're gonna finally settle this in a hardcore match at whatever the next pay-per-view is. That I would be fine with. But instead we get a hardcore match not the week, it's technically been 2 weeks, but essentially the next episode of Nitro after that's happened. There's been no build to this. The match isn't necessarily bad. It's just really booked poorly. And this whole rivalry is essentially going to be this match over and over and over and over again. And I don't think it works. And you don't get to connect with the characters at all. And both these tag teams essentially are kind of dead in the water and just don't realize it yet. I know the crowd is pretty high on Public Enemy, and they're wrong.
Yeah, they do the hand thing. They like the hand thing.
Yeah.
I think anytime the audience can interact, they like it. So
Right.
I don't know if they really like Public Enemy, but they like the hand wave, man. Any excuse to do something, to feel like you're part of something. But okay, I think that's fair. I like the way you booked it. I do like the way you booked it better. I think that works better. It makes sense. And with And with your Patreon subscriptions of $2 a month, we can make that angle become a reality when we purchase a wrestling promotion.
Yeah.
So there you go. That's important.
Mhm.
But you know what else is
That was
important? Oh,
last week that we talked about that. So I just realized that if you didn't listen last week, you have no idea what we're talking about. But
we're
go
gonna buy a
go on.
wrestling promotion with the $4 we're getting from Patreons. Because we got two, right? We got two Patreon subscribers now.
Correct.
That's cool, man. We're moving. It is nice. I mean, we're doing this for fun. If people like, but it makes me happy, and we're doing it for fun. So it's not really a big deal if this never takes off and there's only 12 people who ever listen to us. But it does make me feel good that we're doing something that at least someone enjoys and enjoys enough to give us $2 a month. I think that's nice. I think we're doing something. We're doing a service. We're doing it for the people.
Speaking of which, sorry, I had to look it up real quick because I wasn't sure if we had. We've grown again on Spotify. We've moved up
Ooh.
another few subscribers, so
Ha,
we're we're
ha.
we're in the 30s now, which I never even saw us ever being at. So
Well,
that's great.
until you hear our last one where we were saying mean things about AEW, because AEW fans, they don't take too kindly to that kind of stuff. So we may lose 30,
Yeah. Well,
which we weren't even.
the wild thing to me about that whole thing is, and we're gonna do it again, so get ready. We're gonna we're gonna
Here
lose
it is.
whatever else. Because I was thinking about this when we were talking about this last week. It's not. It's okay to criticize. It's okay to just say this isn't working, and it's a problem, and you guys need to fix it. It's literally what all the people who were clamoring for AEW to become a thing, to become a reality, were saying about WWE, rightfully so, when AEW got created. When things aren't working, you need to make a change. And digging your heels in and saying, "No, we're right, you're wrong," doesn't work.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, honestly, I'm really critical of AEW now. People probably think we're AEW haters. I'm not
We're
actually. I
not.
mean,
We're not.
it comes. My criticism really comes from a place of love,
Yeah.
because AEW, as I said last time, it brought me back. We are doing this podcast. My love of wrestling has been restored because of AEW. And during the pandemic, you were like, "Hey, a couple of us are watching AEW on Wednesday nights. It's really good. It's like WCW in the 90s. Come watch it with us." And I did, and we loved it. But it just got boring because they don't know how to tell stories.
Yeah.
We realize that we like a good 5-star match as much as anybody, no doubt. But you need stories to keep it going, and they don't have that. They don't have writers. It's indie guys who know how to put on good matches, but they've never had to tell a story week to week to week to week. And then you bring somebody in like CM Punk, and he's gone and he's like, "This is how you do a business. This is how you tell stories." And they're like, "Nah, we don't want that. Get out."
Yeah.
It's a problem. And I wish it wasn't, because as Cody Rhodes, a competition is good for wrestling. It was good during the Monday Night Wars. It's good now. I wish AEW the best. I really wish they would course correct and become a legit competitor to WWE, because it would be such a golden age for wrestling. It'd be a renaissance. Cody Rhodes described, and I think he's right. WWE right now is in a renaissance, and I wish wrestling period was in a renaissance. After that, though, we got Earl Bobby Eaton and Macho Man Randy Savage. So
Gonna be a weekly segment where we just go, "Look, guys, we don't hate AEW. We're
yeah,
just saying it's not working."
please stop sending us letters. But we got your boy, the Macho Man Randy Savage. We got him going up against the Earl Robert Bobby Eaton. Macho Man wins, clearly. Again, I feel like this week. Well, I guess the handicap match is a surprise, right? Because you're like, how can he win that? But if you know anything about Hogan, you know he wins. But a lot of this is pretty, like, there's no surprises, I feel like, on WCW this week. Randy Savage beats Bobby Eaton, 3 minutes, 57 seconds. It's your boy, though, so I'm going to let you go off. Tell me about it.
I enjoyed this. Got a B from me. As I've said before, it's the highest I can give without really having a storyline. Although Mach is telling a story with kind of his post-match antics,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
The number one, let's give Robert Ian credit where credit's due. Obviously, we both agree that this gimmick is not right for him, but what he does in this match works really well. Using the whole T-shirt and everything to remind, and the figure four at the same time to remind Macho of what he's dealing with in his personal life. I enjoyed all of that. I thought that was really well done. It would be nice to kind of see these blue bloods essentially be more featured on TV, especially as a unit would be really nice, but they just I don't think that ever really comes to be, but oh well. I enjoyed this. Oh, also, important note, Fred Flintstone's watching this match for some reason. So that's a thing. I don't know if you
Yabba dabba do, Fred.
that was hilarious. Then they just cut right to him, and I was like, okay, that's a thing. We had Mickey Mouse T-shirt last week, and now we've got actually Fred Flintstones. That was great. Savage actually ends up attacking the servant of the Blue Bloods, and that made me audibly laugh. God bless Macho Man. I love it. Crazy Mach is finally here. Not just paranoid Mach. We've had paranoid Mach for a while, but now we're getting unhinged Crazy Mach, and it's so good, and I love it. It's setting up for Mach to really have. I don't know if I would say, you used the term renaissance earlier in regards to wrestling. I don't know if I would say it's renaissance for Mach, but it's kind of just a new character for him, an upgraded version of a character he's already been doing with the paranoid gimmick. I thoroughly enjoy it. It the first two segments of this night have really fallen flat for me, and this starts to pick up the show, and I really, really enjoyed what I saw here.
Yeah, you're right. Mach just keeps elbow dropping Bobby Eaton because he's snapped. He's lost it. They've Ric Flair has stolen his money. He's stolen his ex-wife. He keeps beating them. Hulkamania keeps losing, although tonight they didn't, but they were losing up to this point. It's been bad. And Mach is he's just lost. He snapped. I like it. I think it's good. I think it's a good angle. I think it's better than the Hogan angle for sure. I mean, that's not saying much, but it's a better way of handling it. It's a better way of telling that story than the way Hogan's telling that story. But you know what's even better than that?
What's that, Scott?
A WCW World Tag Team title match. Lex Luger, Sting versus Ric Flair, and the Gigante himself, the giant Paul White. Whoa.
Huge.
It's big. It's big. Do you want to know what happens?
What's that?
Well, Lex Luger and Sting win.
Oh, okay.
But it's a good match. I don't hate it.
No, I
I
agree.
don't hate
I
it.
actually thoroughly enjoyed it. Got to be for me.
Yeah, Lex and Sting win. They win by DQ. They retain the titles 10 minutes, 34 seconds. As our play-by-play color commentary, Joseph, I'm going to let you tell us about it.
So Flair starts us off by hitting on Deborah again. She's in the crowd again. So they're clearly like, we're gonna make a thing out of Deborah McMichael. They're gonna make her, I don't remember if she immediately joins Flair or if she first joins Mongo and then he joins Flair. I know it's a little convoluted in my head. I don't know if it's actually convoluted on screen, but it's coming. Obviously, eventually Mongo will become part of the Four Horsemen. We know that. They're starting to kind of plant the seeds here. This time Flair does not get interrupted by Mickey Mouse shirt woman. And so it actually works.
But where's Fred? Where's Fred Flintstone during all this?
Dude, what if he just started screaming at Flair? That would be amazing.
That's the gimmick.
Oh
the
my god!
It's just that every time Deborah gets interrupted by a Hanna-Barbera cartoon character or something, yeah,
that'd be amazing. Anyways, oh, you're gonna kill me with I was about to start coughing. Sting comes out in all red and white. It gets an A+ from me, and I'll be remiss if I don't mention Savage in the last match was wearing neon green with splashes of purple and yellow, and I didn't like it, and he actually got a D from me. Anyways, back to this one. Flair and Giant don't coexist in this match, and it but it results in the two of them like kind of leaving, which was a little bit weird. Like they start fighting each other and kind of leave, and then somehow they go to commercial and they come back and they're back in the ring, and now we have the match officially working. I really enjoyed what Flair was doing with the Giant. I don't quite understand the bit where they left and they came back. I don't know if you can clarify what happened there, but it just didn't quite make sense to me. Cameraman falls in this match. Earlier in the show, a cameraman fell during the Nasty Boys and Public Enemy match. So this is now the second cameraman who's fallen over, and it's hilarious. This says nothing about the product. It's just a hilarious coincidence that happened twice in the same day. Flair calls for the 3 count after the DQ, which is phenomenal. Just Flair being Flair, lots of Flair work all over this. It's a really, really fun match, and it ends probably the correct way. I think if you have Sting and Luger go over clean, it doesn't really help Giant or Flair. It hurts them a lot more than the way this worked out. So I enjoyed how they handled this and the kind of the back half of the match.
Yeah, as you mentioned, well, I guess I should go back and I should clarify because for people who may haven't been listening, when you mentioned Deborah, we're talking about Deborah McMichaels, which at this time is Steve Mongo McMichaels' wife. We've been having this kind of running gimmick where she's in the crowd and Ric Flair is trying to add her to the harem of the women of Space Mountain. Mongo obviously is not going to take that too kindly, and they're going to have issues, and that's going to ultimately result in Mongo becoming a horseman, which we like Mongo on commentary. He's really grown on us. We don't like him as a horseman, but there's that, and we're just gonna have to deal with it. I actually don't even mind necessarily Mongo wrestling. I just don't like Mongo as a horseman because the horsemen are supposed to be like this again, as I often say, this signature of excellence. And you got some guys never wrestled before. But anyways, we'll get to that, and then I'll rant when we get to that. We don't need to do that right now. You're right. The match ends on a DQ. I think it was the woman that in my notes. It's the woman. She throws hot coffee and hits our intrepid heroes, hits Sting, and there's a DQ. And that's
That's
what
correct. Yeah, that's what
yeah.
happens.
And that's what leads to the DQ. Obviously, the Giant doesn't take too kindly to this. He starts choke slamming everybody. Although we just saw a couple of, earlier in the hour that the choke slam don't do anything. So I don't know why he's doing choke slams because it's not a big deal. But he's choke slamming everybody. And at least at this point, it's really deadly. It really hurts. And that's where we are. That's where we leave it. You got anything more to say about this one before I move on?
No, I mean, overall, the show got a C from me. It was the first half of the show I really just didn't enjoy. Second half I thoroughly enjoyed. So I think C is a perfectly average grade to get there.
It got the old 50-50 from you, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first 30 minutes, not so great. Second 30 minutes, pretty good.
Yep. That's how I
Pretty
felt
good.
about it.
All right. All right. Well, then let's see how you feel about the WWF on April 15th, 1996, in the Orange Pavilion, again, in scenic, beautiful San Bernardino, California. San Bernardino for the uninitiated. Again, I don't know if people from San Bernardino actually like it being called San Bernardino. If you're from San Bernardino, send us a letter. Let me know. I spent my honeymoon at the rivers the inn, the Riverside Inn, I think it's called, in Riverside, which is lovely, which is not in San Bernardino, but we also drove into San Bernardino. It's a nice area, desert. It's very nice. So I got no hard feelings about the San Bernardino, but for comedic purposes, I got to do that.
It gets more ridiculous each time.
And it's gonna, and knowing WWF, they're gonna be there for like 12 years
Oh, yeah.
with these tape shows, so it's gonna get crazier as we go. But let's get into it. We're back with Vince and Jerry. Last week we had Mr. Perfect. Jerry's back on commentary. The first match is Mark Marrow, the Wild Man, versus Leaf Cassidy. Sable is now officially in Mark's corner. I don't think she was before. I mean, she's been there. She was with Hunter, and they had their squabble, and then they fought over her. Now she's with Mark. She's in Mark Marrow's corner. So, what do you think happened on this one, Joseph? I tell you, Mark Marrow versus Leaf Cassidy. Who do you think wins?
I think there's a nice kind of Cinderella story here for Leaf Cassidy.
You're wrong. It's Mark Marrow.
Oh, no.
But tell me about it. Tell me about it, Joseph.
It's fine, right? This match is fine. The problem is they keep putting Leaf Cassidy in these matches where we know, like, I don't I don't know if Marty Jannetty's hurt this time. I think he might be. And I feel like if he is hurt, okay, fine, I get it, right? Leaf Cassidy would be the one. But for these kind of enhancement things, Marty Jannetty is a much bigger name. So why wouldn't you put Marty Jannetty in it and make Leaf Cassidy kind of the manager? I don't know. It's kind of confusing. But if he's hurt, okay, fine. If not, they're making a mistake with this, and we just kind of have to, I guess, accept that. But yeah, I mean, it's the match is fine. It just doesn't really do anything for me. It doesn't make me go, "Wow, I gotta tune in and watch this." It's just kind of it got a C for me. It's Mark Marrow does his best job. Leaf Cassidy will eventually become Al Snow, and we're gonna love him when he is. But right now, he's a very good in ring worker, and that's kind of it right now. So that's where we're at.
We did get a sunset flip, though. I like Mark Marrow's sunset flip.
Yeah, you know who else has a really good sunset flip is Adam Copeland, also known as Edge.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh. Oh, you can't call him that anymore. You can't call him Edge anymore.
I call him whatever the fuck I want. I'm just joking.
You can call him corner, end piece.
Envy. Rim, perhaps?
Whoa. And yeah, and his move would be the rim. Oh. Let's just go. Let's just go on. Because up next, we got Diesel by telephone from Germany. That's how you say it in German. Little known fact. We got a Diesel on the phone from Germany. Hi, Ronnie. From Ronnie's in Germany. So
Yeah,
Diesel's
yeah.
in Germany, probably hanging out with Ronnie, our boy Ronnie. And Diesel just calls to tell us that he's like the best wrestler that's ever been. He's the smartest guy in wrestling. Just really talking himself up. I like it. Heel Diesel equals ratings. What do you think, Joseph?
Yeah, I'm a fan. I again, Diesel's kind of become what Kevin Nash will be immediately in WCW, and I'm enjoying that. Again, I said it last week. It sucks that WWF doesn't get to, benefit from this really, but he's doing a great job. I'm enjoying heel Diesel.
And you know what I like?
What's that, Scott?
That we got a Stone Cold Steve Austin match.
That's
Because
true.
he my boy. He is my George Washington. He is the George Washington of my Mount Rushmore. And that, no joke. Because that's the bottom line. Because I said so.
I don't.
Anyways. What?
I don't believe you at all.
Whatever. Anyways, I'm moving on. Because you're not feeling well. This is going downhill.
No, I feel great. I just sound like shit.
All right. Okay. Well, because the first time, because I gotta tell you, folks, when we do this, we're in a studio, a recording studio together on the internets, and I use my name, and Joseph always uses some creative title. It's just my name versus some Joseph creative title. The first one we did of this, he was cough, and now he's cough, which tells me he's getting worse, ladies and gentlemen. And it's my duty as the master of ceremonies to make this thing go along in an efficient way. And that's why I'm rambling about something that's completely irrelevant to the conversation.
Yes,
Anyways,
cut all of it.
we're not cutting any of this. This is good content. Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Bartholomew Gunn. Who do you think wins this one, Joseph?
I mean, Bart Gunn's a former tag team champion, so he wins, right?
No, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh, gotcha.
I thought you knew how to book shows. God, dude, come on. Anyways, well, I mean, it's Ted DiBiase's involved, so Steve Austin doesn't really win clean, right? He trips our good friend Bart, but Stone Cold does win it. There's the million with the $1 million dream. We're not the stunner yet. We still got the $1 million dream. What'd you think about this one? Oh, I will say during in my notes here, I will say before you jump in, they talk on commentary about how Ahmed Johnson during the match. They talk about how Ahmed Johnson broke his thumb during the arm wrestling contest.
So what you're saying is really British Bulldog won.
It could be broke the man's thumb. Anyways, tell me about the match and tell me if you got thoughts about this important and breaking news.
I don't have thoughts about the breaking news. The match, again, like the first match, just got to see for me. It's fine, right? It is what it is, but it doesn't do anything for me. Obviously, I like seeing Stone Cold Steve Austin win, but I'm sitting there watching this and I'm going, okay, these are two kind of boring matches in a row, mostly because you've got someone that you're trying to establish as a star and should be in that position going against someone who really has no business going against them in the first place. And it's kind of, it's not quite a squash match, but it's not quite a glorified squash match. It's somehow in this like no man's land between the two. So I was sitting there and I'm going, okay, this is like probably the third or fourth week maybe that they've started really calling him Stone Cold. So I was talking to my wife the other day and she goes, how did that even come about? And I was like, oh, this would be a good idea to look this up because I don't think we've really talked about it. And this is still very early on in the Stone Cold run. So I did. And Steve Austin was on Larry King. I don't think it was Larry King Live. I think it was the show he had, the second one, like when he's like, I retired, and then he came back like immediately, like in 6 months, and he had that one on like YouTube or something. Anyways, old people would know what I'm talking about. So Stone Cold had this to say about the Stone Cold name because he was asked about it. He said they wanted to bring me in as the ringmaster. So I went in as the ringmaster, but I knew going in, this was just a foot in the door. That the ringmaster didn't have staying power, didn't have legs. You were never going to see it on a marquee. It's hard to merchandise the ringmaster. So I watched a special on a serial killer, Richard Kuklitsky, I believe his name is. I came up with the concept of just a cold-blooded, ruthless heel because he was known as the Iceman. I pitched the office the idea, and they came back with these names like Fang McFrost, Otto von Ruthless, and Ice Dagger. Temperature-based names. But anyway, I was very frustrated. My wife at the time was from England. She made me a cup of hot tea. She put it on the table and said, well, don't worry about it. You'll come up with something. Go ahead and drink your tea before it becomes Stone Cold. That's your name, Stone Cold Steve Austin. So that's how the name was born. End quote.
Spokane, line 1. I've been waiting for you to tell that story so I could scream that.
All right.
That's quality content.
There you
All
go.
the people are saying.
Yeah. The one person is like, oh, that's a great reference. There you go.
Yeah,
That
you
was
better
for
believe it.
you.
So that's how I saw that too. I saw that's how I got Stone Cold Steve Austin as well. I saw that story. So yep, that's apparently how it happened. It's funny how stuff like that happens. Kind of similar to it goes to show kind of how ridiculous and how kind of in the past WWF's creative division is still right now, because a similar thing happened to Mankind, right? Like Vince wanted Mick Foley to wear a mask because of his ear and kind of all that. And they just came up with just silly stuff for him, just ridiculous. And then he's the one that came up with Mankind and all of it. And it sounds like kind of a similar story here to Stone Cold, where they gave him just really weird gimmicks and he had to come up with his name and his gimmick on his own. So I like what's going on here. I like it. Creative needs to get up with the times, though, if they're going to win these Monday Night Wars. After that, though, we got the man they call Vader. It's Vader time. And he is going to go up against Razor Ramon at our next pay-per-view. Joseph, you got any thoughts about this one?
This is the Jim Cornette interview, right?
Isn't it always?
Yeah. I mean, Jim Cornette kills it. He does a great job. And I thought it was interesting that they decided to make Razor Ramon the opponent. I'm trying to think ahead because obviously we've technically watched this together, but I just don't remember what happens. And I'm trying to think, do they really bring Razor back and just job him out real quick and then let him go? Or do they even get to this match? So it's, if you don't know all this behind the scenes stuff, I think it's a great idea from a booking standpoint. Razor's a big name. Vader, go kill him. That works. I think that all works really well from a booking standpoint. But from a backstage standpoint, I'm like, yeesh, they're really upset at Razor right now. So there you go. Got a B for me. This whole segment gets a B for me. I enjoyed it.
So I'm looking it up here for you. WWF In Your House 7. Good Friends, Better Enemies. That's gotta be the pay-per-view because that's the next one up. Let me see what the card is. Yes, they wrestle.
All right, there you go.
So there you go. And you've already spoiled the outcome. But yeah.
Well, I didn't. You did.
I didn't say anything.
I suggested. You confirmed.
Well, we knew with your great booking powers that you were probably right. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But what also I'm saying is that after that, we got a Sunny music video.
I forgot about this.
Yeah. I'm going to let you give your thoughts, and then I'll give my thoughts. Go ahead.
So my only note here is Scott is in heaven right now. And with that, I'm going to pitch it right back to you, Scott.
I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. It's, I'm not going to get into it because I've gotten into it so many times, and people who listen to this podcast are probably tired of my feminism. which I never thought I was that much of a feminist, but man, the 1990s WWF is really bringing it out of me. I just I get that Sunny's pretty. I get that using her looks is important because wrestling is for teenage boys. I just the way they do it is just so cringe. And that's all I'm gonna say. I'm just gonna move on because I don't want to get into another 20-minute tirade about this. So I'm gonna move on, and our listeners will thank me for it. We'll get letters. Thank you for not running your mouth for 40 more minutes about that again. You're welcome in advance. But anyways, here's my issue with that. No, let's move on. Let's move on. We got the main event. I promised it to you last week. You're getting it. The Intercontinental title match, Goldust versus Savio Vega. Joseph, Savio Vega. I'm gonna kick it to you. What do you think? Here's the card: Goldust versus Savio Vega. We're gonna do this again. Who do you think wins?
I would assume, based off of the rivalry that they've just created with Ultimate Warrior, that Goldust would win this match.
No, he
Okay.
doesn't. You know who wins?
Who's that, Scott?
I don't know. I don't know who wins this match because Savio Vega defeats Goldust to win the Intercontinental title. But then there's a dispute. Another ref comes out and disputes that Savio Vega won. Gorilla Monsoon comes out and vacates the title and says there's going to be a rematch next week. Joseph, make sense for me.
If we're talking about just kind of booking a match between these two guys and there's no storyline going on with either of them, I'm okay with it. I think it's a really interesting idea, to be honest. If the rivalry was these two men, I am okay with the way this played out. I actually gave this match a B. It was a fun match that had a creative ending. The problem is, it's again goes back to storytelling, right? Savio Vega is currently in a rivalry with Stone Cold Steve Austin. So why is he in this match having this go on? Because if he is now all of a sudden IC champion, don't you have to put that belt in now the rivalry with Stone Cold and Savio Vega? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And then from Goldust's point of view, he's in the rivalry with Ultimate Warrior, seemingly for the IC title. So how do you make this work for him? It doesn't work either way. I think you could have had a match like this, and it could, if it had a clear winner with just it being Goldust, cool. Both people get to go on their own direction with their own storylines. But they've created this convoluted mess with the IC title that somehow intertwines both storylines, and it doesn't work. So I'm wondering if already at this point they're already having problems with Ultimate Warrior and trying to book around it, or not, because it doesn't make sense from a storytelling standpoint. Now the rivalry is somehow between Savio Vega and Goldust, and it goes on. It's going to clearly go on to next week. That's what they just told us. How do you make this make head or tails? It just doesn't work. I think if you just had it between these two guys, you're okay. This is a really cool ending for a rivalry between just these two men. But because they're already in rivalries, it's very confusing. And as an audience, I don't know how you understand what's going on. You had a really good show last week, and they're going to this show, and you're going, wait, what? What's going on? Why is this happening? This doesn't make any sense. And they're just really kind of setting themselves back a lot further than I think they should at this point.
This confused me so much, especially with everything you've laid out. Savio Vega is in his rivalry with Stone Cold. Goldust is in his rivalry with Ultimate Warrior. And apparently, and you would think the whole point of that is for them to fight over the IC title at the pay-per-view. As you mentioned, Ultimate Warrior is like one of the most prolific IC champions ever. It makes sense. Like, that rivalry makes sense. So I was like, what are they doing? This is insane. It's just completely crazy that none of this makes sense. Why would they be doing this from a booking perspective? So I actually did some research. I know, shocking. And what I found out was apparently, so as you remember, Diesel called from Germany. Apparently, they were doing some shows in Germany. And the previous week, Goldust had done one of the shows in Germany, and he had injured his knee. I think it was his knee, maybe his leg, but definitely lower extremity, knee, leg, foot, something like that. And they weren't sure if he was going to be good to go. So I think what they're trying to do here is they're trying to create some ambiguity in the rivalry so that if Goldust is not good for the pay-per-view, they can just slot Savio Vega or someone else in their place. Goldust ultimately does wrestle at the pay-per-view and then keep hyping it like he's going to. So I don't know how bad the knee was, if he ended up feeling better like pretty quickly or what, but I think that's what they're trying to do here. They're purposely trying to muddy the waters in case Goldust isn't good to go for the pay-per-view, which from a backstage perspective, okay, that makes sense. But for you watching at home, the hell is going on?
Yeah, it's really confusing.
The match itself, though, pretty good, wouldn't you say? I mean, I like these two guys. I think they wrestle well. I thought the match was pretty good, right?
Yeah, I agree. The match itself is a lot of fun.
Anything in particular that caught your fancy in it, or should we just start wrapping it up?
No, I think we're good to go to the final segment.
The final segment. And I know you're going to want to talk a lot about this segment. I know it's going to be very exciting for you. Bret Hart
Yep.
talking about the Iron Man match. He's upset. He wants to set the record straight about a lot of things. Joseph, what did you think about Bret the Hitman Hart talking about the Iron Man match, his future plans, all that kind of stuff? I guess background is this: there was rumors that he was fed up with WWF the way he was being handled, and that he was going to WCW, and that's really what this is. That's the purpose of this, to clear the air. But what do you think?
I really hated this. It got a D from me. I would really like this. The same thing. Everything that gets said, because he's coming off super whiny, right? He's just crying and complaining. He even says that he's been betrayed. Like he says it a number of times, that he got screwed out of this match, blah, blah, blah. He's a face, and that's why this sucks. For the same exact reason why we've been complaining about Hulk Hogan and his whininess that he was on for many weeks and months, when he just kept being a whiny baby behind the scenes, or not behind the scenes, but on screen. If Bret Hart was coming back as a heel, this is the coolest fucking thing. I'm 100% on board with it, but he's not. He's not coming back as a heel. He's coming back as a face. They're going to run with that for a while. And then I think like a year later, he's finally going to go heel. So it just doesn't work. It's literally just him crying the whole time, and I don't enjoy it. And I don't know how they didn't see that this was a mistake, but here we are. It kind of just is what it is at this point. We're going to have to roll with it, and hopefully it picks up steam somewhere, but I just don't see it happening.
So while you're a Cody crybaby, you're not a Bret crybaby.
I am not a Bret crybaby. That's one thing that definitely separates me and CM Punk.
Damn. CM Punk loves. For
Love.
those who don't know, CM Punk loves Bret Hitman Hart. It's his guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is fine. Totally fine. He's wrong, but it's fine.
Bret is one of the greatest technical wrestlers of all time. Is he the total package? No, that's Lex Luger. But I you and I, as you said, as we've said more than once, you and I are really like storytelling, and Bret is not the best storyteller. Maybe in the ring with wrestling, he's a great storyteller.
Yes.
Outside of the ring, Owen is much better in that regard, and that's why I think for both of us, Owen is higher up on our heart chart.
Heart chart. That's so good. I love it.
Yeah. That just came to me as if in a vision. Anyways, I wanted to go back to the point you made about Hulk Hogan, because I think you're so spot on here. That's really the issue. If either of these guys had used this, kind of sore loser stuff, because they're really being sore losers, to become heels, oh, it'd have been so good. It would have been so good. I can't wait till we get to Kurt Angle, because Kurt Angle, in my opinion, has one of the greatest heel turns of all time, because he just does it so well. Because it's really this where He thinks he should be loved. He's not loved. Okay, if you don't love me, then I'm going to hurt everyone you love. And I think that's so good. And Hogan could do it. Hogan kind of does do it eventually, but reluctantly. Brett doesn't do it. And I just really feel like there's just so much being left on the table here. There's just so much that could be done with this. And it's not going to be done with it. It's disappointing. And you just look like a sore loser. And I don't like sore losers. I'm not a fan of it. So it doesn't really work for me. But did it work for you, Joseph? And by that, I don't mean this Bret Hart promo. I mean Raw tonight. What did you score them? How do they compare with WCW tonight? Who won this week?
So I gave obviously a C to WCW. I gave WWF a C minus. I think
Oh,
they were really hot last week. And I think they've just kind of halted with too many confusing, why are we doing this things? And it really left a bad taste in my mouth. And I'm gonna give it, as much as I hated the first half of Nitro, I really liked the second half a lot. And there was nothing in this show that I was like, that is fantastic. Everything was just kind of, okay, all right.
interesting. Because I was kind of on the fence about this one because I think you're right about Nitro being kind of 50-50, right? The first half, not great. The second half, pretty good. And I thought that Raw, while I don't think any of it was great, I felt it was pretty good throughout, right? Like there wasn't this first 30 minutes wasn't great, second 30 minutes was pretty good. And I had trouble deciding whether or not they balanced each other right out. And I don't like the ambiguity of the Intercontinental title match on Raw, but I hated the handicap match on Nitro. And that really kind of spoiled the tag team match for me on Nitro because, Giant ends by chokeslamming everybody, but we were just shown that chokeslams don't do anything if you're Hulk Hogan. So like it kind of just took away the effectiveness of what I was seeing. And so to me, it's like, does the handicap match on Nitro, is that worse than the Intercontinental nonsense on Raw? And I don't know. I mean, from a booking perspective, I get why Raw is doing what they're doing. I don't get from a booking perspective, what WCW is doing besides that Hulk Hogan has a stipulation in his contract that he has control over his character. I think I'm going to give it to Raw because even though from a fan perspective, what they're doing doesn't maybe make sense right now, from a booking perspective, there's at least some logic to it. While the Hogan stuff is just off the rails and it needs to change. I think I'm giving it to Raw. I've talked myself into it. It's Raw tonight. So you said Nitro, I said Raw. But what did the fans think? We've got a split here. So obviously whoever the fans agree with is the right one. And I'm not preloading that because I've already looked. Go ahead.
So Raw stayed high from last week. Last week they were at a 4.7 unopposed. This week, 3.1.
3.1. And WCW Nitro is a 2.8. So the fans are right. They agree with me.
And I know you think that means that that's a victory for you. However, you did kind of say that I'm a booking genius. So I think you're wrong. And it actually means that you guys are all wrong and they should have sided with me.
Well, just delete that part where I said that, okay?
Okay.
All right, then no problem. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't say that. You can't prove that.
Yeah.
But that's it. I will say that Raw kind of goes on a tear. I'm looking at the ratings right here. Raw kind of goes on a tear for a couple of weeks. And then it's not long here, though. We're getting close. The 83 weeks, man, it's coming. Raw goes on a tear, but then it's over. And it's going to be interesting to talk about. We're getting there, folks. We're getting there. It's coming. But for now, that's all we got. As always, I'm Scott. With me again is Joseph. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, guys. Hey, everybody, it's Joseph. And guess what? Not only can you listen to us every Monday on Spotify, but you can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and YouTube podcasts as well. Just search for Monday Night Wars Podcast. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us on Twitter at MON Night Wars Pod, on Instagram at Monday Night Wars Podcast, or just email us at mnwpodcast@gmail.com. And finally, subscribe to our Patreon at Monday Night Wars Podcast. For $2 a month, you get every pay-per-view from WCW and WWF during this era, as well as additional content later on. Once again, thank you for listening. We'll see you here next time on the Monday Night Wars Podcast.